This is the recap of the U.S.'s very exciting, very crazy penalty kick win over Costa Rica in the quarterfinals of the Gold Cup. We're booking our ticket to play Guatemala in the semifinals, who somehow outlasted Canada in one of the other quarterfinals. Mexico and Honduras, the other semifinal. The Final Four is set, and we are excited about it. Welcome, everybody that's watching us right now on the Golasso Network and the Golasso America YouTube channel. We appreciate you, and everybody listening at home, we appreciate you as well, wherever you like to get your podcasts of choice. Okay, so Charlie Davies, at halftime, you said that the team had a bit of a 6 out of 10 performance. What are you saying now after the game, after we survived, going up 2-1, didn't manage the game, gave up a goal, a pretty cheap goal, go 2-2, going to pens. Obviously exciting that we did the business there. But what are you saying now out of 10, having some time to digest it after a very exciting penalty kick?
Yeah, 5 out of 10.
You went less.
Yeah. You would go higher?
Explain yourself. No, wait. I wouldn't.
You make it seem like they should get an 8 out of 10 or something.
No, they shouldn't. Yeah, I agree with
you. They played worse in the second half. And sure you could say, okay, they won in pens. I can tell you one thing, the player who benefited the most is Matt Freese. Because think about Matt Turner, how he really got going, and that was by saving penalty kicks in the Gold Cup following that Nations League. That's what got him going, and the belief that was established under Berhalter. Now Freese, in a big moment, has come up and saved his team.
3 saves,
and he got a touch on 2 others, right? So yeah. For me, Matt Freese is the star, and the team underperformed in this second half.
What's interesting, Chuck, I agree with you. I think it should be a lower rating overall than how we were feeling at halftime. But there were some really good things that I saw in the second. That's what I think frustrates me the most, is that we saw some good build-up play, a little bit of in, back, and through. I know it wasn't consistent enough for us. We scored a very good goal coming out of halftime. I thought Arfsten's goal was really well taken. We saw some other things that were good. But it's just not being sustained over a long period of time that I think gets frustrating. Or then we just shut off. The goal we gave up was unacceptable. And it's Arfsten and Luca De La Torre getting beat on the dribble out wide. For everybody that didn't see it, I highly encourage you to go check out the highlights, because this will make this podcast feel a little bit more alive for you having that context. He gets in between those two, gets into the box, has a shot. Matt Freese saves. It goes right back to him, and nobody reacts. They touch it back across in the middle, and then Alonso Martinez scores. And that guy is a very good player. So if you're an NYCFC fan, you're lucky, because I really like his game. But Tones, are you with me and Charlie that there's some good things you want to glom onto, but also we have to look at the reality or the other side of it, which is that we were lacking some consistency in some important areas of the game.
Yeah, I gave a 6 at halftime, and the way they came out, the goal, and a couple minutes after that, a couple of combinations, I was leaning towards a 7, and then all of a sudden it started to drop for me. They gave too much away, too many mistakes. I'm still a 5, 5.5, even 6 if you want, because they end up winning the game in the end, right? But I'm in that area. I'm not too much more than that. A couple guys had some moments tonight. Matt Freese has had his moment now, right? So the question you asked me before about who's the number 1, I gave you an answer that Matt Freese, Matt Turner still has some work to do to get, and I still think that's the case, but Matt Freese got a little bit closer to being the number 1, because it's a big moment, right? It's a moment that Pochettino's not going to forget. It's a moment this group is not going to forget. Freeman, he had his moment in the penalty kick, right? Because he doesn't have a great game, but he steps up, and he's 20 years old. Let's not forget this, right? He's 20 years old. He's playing his 4th international game, has a tough night. He could have taken that into penalty kicks, but no, he buries his penalty kick. And I get it. Penalty kick is a moment, right? But it still takes some stones to step up there when you're not feeling 100% about yourself, right? And then Damian Downs just had his moment, and he's not hardly played the entire tournament. The fact that he stepped up to take it for me is pretty cool, man. Because this is a guy now that we all know, right? We're in these. You're always trying to do something. Look, everyone likes these guys. You're likable, but everyone wants to see something on the field. Like, they want to have something to grab onto. That Damian Downs, I still want to see more of him. I'm in that camp, but that moment for him is pretty cool, and so he's had a moment now. So there's a lot of like positives.
Yeah. I just to continue that theme, you had Diego Luna, who scored his first ever goal for the U.S. You had Max Arfsten, who scored his first ever goal for the U.S. He had an assist in this one as well. He kind of negated that with a couple mistakes defensively, which led to 2 Costa Rica goals. But you're talking about these moments, so something that potentially could build off of. Malik Tillman continues to grow into being a guy that we can trust and to create opportunities consistently and in different ways. He can get on the end of crosses. He can shoot from distance. He can make the final pass. I'm still excited about what Tillman's bringing to the table. I thought Berhalter had a nice, strong game. I love his energy in there. Ajiman had some good moments of holding the ball up. When I start to think, though, about standout performers, Chuck, there's still an element that about game management. And I know this is not isolated to the U.S. We see it all over at the club level. We see it with other national teams. It's one of the hardest things to capture and to teach, right? Because you have to go through it. You have to suffer a little bit to understand how to manage games in different situations. But when we're up at 2-1 in a quarterfinal knockout round game, that should be it. And for a while, we were controlling the flow, and it's like we weren't ready or didn't make the right decisions once Costa Rica started to apply more pressure and to put more players going forward, which ultimately led to their second goal. They finally got some numbers in advanced positions, and we struggled with how to contain it. And that just can't happen, because if it happens in the World Cup next summer, it's going to be a really short run in the World Cup. So for that game management, I know I harp on it a lot for everybody that listens pretty regularly, but we have to figure that part of the game out if we're going to be a team that's going to be a threat and a team people don't want to play against moving forward.
Yeah, well, I look at it as when you're playing against difficult CONCACAF teams, sometimes you play against the Canadas of the world, the Mexicos of the world, teams that have quality players. Sometimes you may feel like the underdog at times, especially in this competition when you don't have a Christian Pulisic, a Timothy Weah, and Weston McKennie. So you say, okay, maybe we got to be more of organized, more focused on defensive shape, and we have to play counter. We have to rely on set pieces. Then it flips when you play teams that you are tactically better than, that you have more quality than, and a Costa Rica team, a Guatemala team, where they're full of fight, they're full of resilience. They're also apt to use the dark arts. You have to figure out ways to win those type of matches, and it's all about being smart in those situations. Like you said, they're going to play a certain way. It's through counters. They're going to try and get a man sent off. They're going to play ugly, reckless, and direct. That's CONCACAF in a lot of matches. So for some guys, you kind of know what to expect, and for some, like a Freeman, for instance, he's learning on the fly. A Patrick Ajiman, a little bit late in his development, he's learning what center backs do to you in CONCACAF, how physical it is. So there's beauty in winning games like this, and there's beauty, obviously, when you outplay a team like a Canada or a Mexico, which we've seen in Nations League. So I look at this game and I go, we're going to get more of that against Guatemala. And then in the final, if you beat Guatemala, and they're obviously flying high right now, they're going to go into the semifinal with nothing to lose. Those teams are very dangerous to play against. If you get by them, then you're playing against the Mexico team where all of a sudden the roles reverse and they are the favorites, right? And the U.S. are back to being underdogs. And I think this team would thrive as being underdogs. At least that's what you would hope for. So I look at this game and I go, there weren't too many people who stand out. Malik Tillman and Matt Freese. Chris Richards, probably those are the three that you go, for sure, they've impressed throughout the competition. And then tonight, I think they took positive steps as well.
All right, let's take a look at the stats. 18 shots for the U.S. versus 7 for the Ticos, 4 shots on target. So we weren't really making the most of those shots. I mean, 18 shots, only 4 on target. 3 on target for the Ticos. 64% possession. We had almost double the amount of passes that Costa Rica had, just to kind of give you a little bit of the story of how the game was going. But again, it's what you do with that possession that matters. We had 9 corner kicks. I thought we could have been a little bit more dangerous on set pieces. We have some very good free kick takers and set piece takers. So there are some areas of improvement. Of course, Mauricio Pochettino and his coaching staff will look at it the same way. For me, it's these little, I look back at the first goal, Tones, right? We had Max Arfsten, the ball was on the other side of the field. Max Arfsten.
Their first goal.
First goal, yeah. So
okay.
He pinches in. He misses the ball that goes up in the cross. And then when he tries to get back into the play, he ends up making a mistake and giving up a penalty. And for me, as much as I really value what he does on the offensive side of the ball, you can't be that vulnerable or that big of a risk for us defensively, because we saw it against Switzerland as well, where he got absolutely eaten up in that particular game out wide in 1v1 situations. It happens again today. He gives up a penalty. For me, like, if we're going to, you got to be able to count on and trust your players to do the job on both sides of the ball. And Max Arfsten is a bit of again, I really like his game, but that has to get cut out. Otherwise, honestly, you can't play in the World Cup for us next year. We got to have players that can trust.
He's not playing in that position.
I get that. I mean, Jedi's going to be the guy. I understand, but like, even if let's say Jedi's hurt, somebody's going to be hurt that we don't want to be hurt next summer. So I'm just throwing. But I'm using him as an example. I can only talk about the players that are in front of us, Chuck. Right? So.
But don't you think, like, tonight, you can't? I think you have all these peaks and valleys in his game, right? You had some good stuff, then you get some bad stuff, and then some good stuff again, and like, that's not going to cut it. And then the attacking side of the field, as much as he gets forward, I still think that the crosses have to be better, right? The precision on the crosses have to be better. You're getting in good positions, and now you got to make them worthwhile.
Yeah. No.
So getting in those positions is one thing, and then being dangerous is another thing. And he's got something to his game. I just don't know if it equals up a year from now to being in this team. Because I still think, obviously we know Anthony Robinson, but I still think you got a Joe Scally who has played at the club level for the national team. Has he played left back at all for us? I'm not quite sure if he's played left back for the national team.
Yeah,
and
you
still
got Uruguay in Kansas City. I don't know why I pulled that one out of my
Yeah, okay, there you go. So, I mean, he's got it there, but he's played it at the club level. You got Serginho Dest, who can also play on that side.
Yeah.
If he had to. It's not his best side. So, and we still need to get him fully healthy. So you still have to look at other guys. Does Tolkien now, run this entire year in Europe and see how he turns out? It's hard. Chuck, I'm with you. Richards, Malik Tillman for sure, Tyler Adams. Those are the guys. Matt Freese. Those are the guys. And Tyler was quiet tonight, but when I'm thinking about guys that have opportunities for next year, and sort of Malik Tillman's the one that's kind of starting to lock himself in. But then you look at it and go, who do you take out at some point? Like, who's the guy you replace if you're going to put him in as the starter? That's Pochettino's decision. But not a lot of great performances tonight, but a gritty performance. And you know what? If you're going to be a good team on the nights where it's not perfect and you give things away, you give teams and you find ways to win, that's what good teams do in the end. That's a big lesson.
I want to mention, we're showing a photo here of Matt Freese, and in penalties, he's now made a name for himself, and 3 saves in penalties is incredible. So hats off to him. We were how
quickly we forget Matt Turner. Look how quickly.
Yeah.
One match, and everyone's talking about the PK maestro in Matt Freese, right?
Yeah, I know, you're right.
But Chuck, the reality is that we've only remembered Matt Turner over the last couple years because nobody's pushed him.
Yeah.
Like, if he was anywhere else where he was playing as little as he was playing, and someone came in and was, kicking the doors down, then he wouldn't have been in the game, right? He used the national team to get games. That doesn't happen in many places around the world. Yeah. So my point earlier was that this is the biggest fight Matt Turner has had since he's gotten to the national team.
Yeah. And right now he's not winning that fight. Thanks to one Matt Freese. So I did want to give a shout out to Malik Tillman. I mentioned it during the game, but I'll bring it up again. I think he continues to demonstrate how vital he is to our attack. And I think that's because he can hurt other teams in a lot of different ways, getting on the end of crosses, making the final pass, looking to combine, hitting from distance. And I think it's been nice. He's taken advantage of not having some of our bigger personalities and names in the team, so he could really step up and take on that responsibility. I wanted to throw that out there. I agree with you guys on that. I thought Chris Richards, if we want to get into some of the nuance and subtleties, some of his entry passes to break the lines, excellent. That's going to help us unlock any team in the world. So I want to see more of that going forward. And Chuck, I wanted to come to you on 3 players or 4 players actually that weren't on your your naughty list or killed it list, but I still think could argue we're solid. You had Luca De La Torre, Diego Luna, Sebastian Berhalter, and Patrick Agyemang. Where do you think they help themselves out, or do you feel like, just tell me your feelings on these 4 particular players.
I think Diego Luna, obviously, he still got the goal. I think he was active in the first half. He played well, but in the second half he went quiet, and I think that's when we started to see the U.S. regress a little bit, because they got the early goal, and then it was almost, the mentality is protect the lead. The mentality is don't make mistakes. And then Costa Rica started to feed off of that, and they were pushing forward. They're getting numbers forward. And ultimately, you didn't see Luna in the second half. Berhalter, I thought he was pretty solid. That early yellow card, I think, changed the way he played as well. Because then all of a sudden, in the back of your mind, you're like, I don't want to be Jacob Schaffelberg. Right. So I think his game changed a little bit. He played on the safe side, and that's to be expected when you get a yellow. De La Torre, in the first half, he was pretty active. Again, second half went quiet. And I figured if they were going to add a striker, that's the one player you're going to take off because of how he plays. So if you want somebody to really change the way that you're playing, to give you a little bit more of an advantage up top, if you're adding a striker, De La Torre makes sense, and that's exactly who they took off. Who was the fourth one? Freeman? Agyemang. Agyemang, he for me kind of stayed the same. He didn't regress. He definitely didn't progress. Hold up play is pretty good, solid, but not elite. His 1v1 still needs work, dribbling at players. I mean, that's one of those things where you take him aside and you work with him for 30 minutes on just
Every
your
day.
particular the shape at which you attack a defender. Some of the tells when they're on their heels. That you can just push it and go when they're flat-footed. Getting them off balance. Some of those things it comes with work, but right now he needs to. Definitely, obviously doesn't have the time to do it when you're in a competition like this, but that's the one thing he needs to sharpen to make him a little bit more dynamic, is when the ball's at his feet, to run at defenders and can beat them off the dribble.
Yeah, I think one of the fun conversations that I have percolating in my brain is who's going to be the partner for Tyler Adams in the World Cup next year, or partners, I should say. I mean, you got McKinney, you got Musa, you got Tessman, you got Cardoso, you got De La Torre, you got Berhalter, Musa. I mean, you got a whole bunch of guys, right?
Cardoso took a big step back.
He did, and there's no question about that.
Obviously, you can't cut him out if he's at Atletico Madrid, but again, he's got to play at Atletico Madrid. I know. It's one thing to get to Atletico Madrid, which is a phenomenal achievement. It's another thing to play, and it's another thing to play consistently. So much so that you are in contention to get a place in the U.S. Men's National Team World Cup starting 11. Yeah. Because for me, Weston McKennie is, I mean, he's playing at Juve. He's gonna be in the starting 11, and then you figure out what does that third piece look like. If Yunus Musa's not playing, he's not starting in the World Cup. It's just figuring out what is the right mix. And then Gio Reyna, it feels like he's just staying put in a position where he's not going to play at all.
I know.
So he might not even make the World Cup roster, period. He probably most likely won't if he stays at Dortmund. That gives
we got an audition. The audition is wide open for midfield. And I think that there's a lot more players that are asking questions about how they can be involved, and they're performing at a level where you're like, all right, I could see something in that. Part of our charm here on the show is that even though we are average to good, we like to have good to great guests on the podcast. And so we are absolutely thrilled to have the one and only Christina Unkel, who just dominates in all things refereeing and officiating on the show. Christina, great to see you as always.
Oh my God. Hi, team. Look at me. Like, I had to get up to come do this, but thanks for having me on.
Yes.
Is this my first ever show on Call It What You Want?
I mean, we make dreams come true here, Christina, so we appreciate you being on. Okay, so we want to get to the big talking point from the U.S. men's national team perspective. It's the foul on Malik Tillman from Vargas. They call the penalty. They look at it. The tackle is late. It's at the ankle. Studs are showing, but we get the pen after video review, but he only gets a yellow when we're all like, what? That looks like a red for sure. What are we even doing with our lives?
Yeah. So your guys' show is called Call It What You Want. So I'm going to call it how it is. All right. Like, that's a missed incident. I'm sorry. That's a missed incident. You're gracious by saying ankle. I'm going to say Achilles on it. I remember first time I saw the, what's it called? Basically what we would call like that point, right? The point of contact. I was like, woof, ball gone. Ball gone. That's another consideration, right? Ball is gone. There's not going to ever be a play on that ball. It's gone. So yes, you're right. Proper recommendation from the VAR to recommend down for a penalty because there was no penalty called on the play. Penalties given. That's correct. But at that point, even if your VAR doesn't recommend it down for a red card, you're looking at it already from a referee perspective, saying point of contact, speed, how late was the tackle, endangering the safety of the player, right? From essentially what kind of point of contact. And yep, should have been a red card.
Is there anything, Christina, and thanks for jumping on here. Is there anything that makes it not a red card? Does it fit any of the, you mentioned the ones that fit the criteria of a red card, but on the other side, did it fit any of that criteria?
Yeah, the only one, and I mean, I get to argue both sides when I'm in my own brain, so imagine that. But, as Tillman's like basically pretty much running off the field, right? Distributes the ball, he's taking steps towards off the field. You can potentially make an argument that, his momentum is taking him away. So that full contact isn't as if his foot was like still, like it was set in place. It was going against the inertia of Vargas's contact. That's probably the closest argument you can possibly make, saying the momentum would have pushed in the other way. And sometimes we make that argument when it's kind of a bit of a scissor tackle, was a person's foot above air, right? And then you get studs in the back of the Achilles, but then the leg moves up. So you're not really kind of stuck on the ground. I mean, that's really the best counter argument. I'll put my lawyer hat on. I always have to argue in the counter argument. It's not a winning argument. Sometimes you know that. So.
Oh, Chuck's on mute.
Try unmuting yourself, Tony. I mean, Chuck.
He was wearing a hat.
Yeah,
I know.
I was gonna say I could see how that could be deemed as just reckless because it didn't maybe quite tick the box of excessive force. But I was curious what you thought of the rest of the way the match was handled. There were some yellows. It did get contentious. Do you think he did a good job of still keeping it under control, or do you think things bubbled over a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we've covered, right, CONCACAF. I've been part of refereeing games in CONCACAF, and and on CBS Sports we cover UEFA as well, right? So there is a level of, it might sound weird, but there's a level of expectation from a cultural standpoint of football, right? What is kind of, and I mean, darn it, Charlie, you and Tony, you guys played in CONCACAF as well too, right? That we understand that there's going to be some things just from a management style that you have to accept. Go watch CONMEBOL, right? There's things that are, I think it was our CBS Sports, and they're like, oh, CONCACAF is one of the hardest. I would argue CONMEBOL is one of the hardest, right, to play in from a physicality standpoint. And then next is the Turkish league, but that's another statement.
But I feel like I'm sitting in a CONCACAF climate right now because I have no air conditioning. I am sweltering here.
No.
Oh yeah, I'm eating bananas. I'm staying hydrated. I got water. It's dire moments here. Dire.
Send someone that stretcher, right? You guys always jump up when we send the stretchers out right away. I think overall the tempo, what he needed to call, you're gonna have to manage this type of a game, particularly right with the history that's associated, right, with Costa Rica and the United States. Cards aren't going to mean anything in the first half. And I know that sounds rough, right? Unless it's 100% misconduct that you have to enforce it. You got to manage these games. CONCACAF is a game about management style. Center referee, we kind of laugh and I turn on the game to see, and I'm like, we've all refereed with that man before, right? So he kind of knows that style of what was needed. So ultimately it was okay. I was surprised though he did not come out with a red card on that play with Tillman.
Yeah, I'm still a little, I would be even more bitter about it, I guess, Christina, had we ended up losing that game to the Ticos. Also, I want to give you a shout out. You're the president and GM of the Tampa Bay Sun, and your club just won the first ever USL Women's Super League Championship in extra time over Fort Lauderdale United 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
That is fantastic.
It's still very surreal, right? The referee world, when I started doing the TV stuff to talk about refereeing, is like, you went to the dark side. And now the referee world's like, you went to like the really dark side by like team administration, launching a pro team. And to you guys know, it's not every year you're rewarded with all your hard work, all your effort, from the front of house to selling tickets. I say we have 2 championship teams, front of house and the sporting. Yeah, I've learned a lot. This has been a tough year. I still have an eye twitch from the hosting a semifinal, whipping around and doing a sellout in a final in 3 to 4 days. My team sold that out, which was awesome. And then, in traditional style, we did a Tampa Bay boat parade. So you think of the
Awesome.
Lightning and the Bucks and throwing the trophy. I mean, we practiced throwing that Super League trophy. The cup with the handle's way too big. But yeah, thanks, boys. Appreciate it. So
that's
no,
great.
of course, well deserved, and we know how much time and effort you've put into it to make it happen. So, just rewards. Okay, so when you walk into a CONCACAF game, let's do a compare and contrast, Christina. So let's say you're going to go to an MLS game, or you're going to college, you're going to go. I mean, do you know going into a CONCACAF game that it's going to get chippy at some point? So what do you? Maybe if you're helping direct the referees, how are you helping them manage the emotion of a game that you know is going to get highly emotional?
Your first thing is you're refereeing when no one's watching. And what you mean by that is like you are addressing things right out of the gate when the cameras aren't on you, right? So probably that extra love touch, right? When it's easily going out for a goal kick, right? So you're not blowing the whistle, you're not making a big deal out of it, right? The ball's getting set for that goal kick, you're swinging by that player, you say, hey, knock that stuff off. We're gonna use the word stuff. It's just little things here and there to kind of say, I'm watching, I see it. Particularly here because the players are smart. They know what they're doing, right? They know that it's the dark arts. So where a lot of those situations that occur that you have to be that 110% on top of is everything in front of the benches. Anything that happens in front of the benches. I think CONCACAF a couple years ago named it the free zone. I hate that name, so don't use that. But like I just call it a hotspot, right? So you're going to blow up. You're going to come in with the studs and tackle, right? You're going to take off someone's like foot off of that. And I forgot which game it was. Sorry. I'm between Club World Cup and CONCACAF Gold Cup and everything in between. I'm losing track of which games I'm watching. But like that one is where your whistle's louder. You're coming in. Like you're basically catching everyone's attention to be like, holy smokes, we got a ref on that game. And that's what we mean by essentially over managing in particular plays and then having that quiet conversation. If you're a black and white referee, meaning point and foul beat, point, like, and do that stuff, you're gonna lose control of the game. And that's where a lot of the new CONCACAF referees who are in it, especially when I see them get their first assignment, I'm like, all right, this is gonna be a rough one because they haven't gotten that bite, right? They haven't been bitten, they haven't had the dark arts played against them. And sadly, the only way you learn as a referee is through experience. And sometimes you got to get burned a couple of times to figure out how to referee CONCACAF properly.
So this is actually a pretty experienced referee, right? Walter Lopez, and we see him quite a bit in CONCACAF games. So what happens from here? So is there a committee that might be ringing him up and say, Walter, we need to chat. Like, you got this one wrong. Or is this like you just leave it be?
No, they never leave it be, no matter how senior you are. I mean, I think when you come in with a bit more experience, like Walter Lopez, right, from Guatemala, I believe, a fellow Guatemalan, go Guatemala today for winning. Sorry, I'm half Guatemalan, so I'm going to shout out for that. Yeah, let's go. It still always gets addressed. You just have a little bit more credibility to say, right? And one would think that would go against you because you should be able to get this, but there's going to be a little bit more leniency just for the fact that when you talk about the further assignments, and I wouldn't say he's off the bucket for any future assignments. I mean, with that kind of a play, the fact that the United States won, I know that sounds crazy, but when it comes into their mindsets of assignments, like that would, because the U.S. won, that wouldn't now count him out of the final, right? Or a third place game, so long as the U.S. isn't in it. They would still consider him because of his years of experience, and the likelihood of him getting those decisions incorrect is far less than somebody who's kind of younger and coming in. I mean, he would put himself now on the bubble of not getting an assignment for sure. But it's not even a phone call. It's like you're stepping off that tunnel. Or you're stepping into that tunnel into your locker room, and you already got a referee, match observer. You already got a number of texts, and you kind of already know. So it's not a good feeling, I can tell you that.
I want to give a shout out to Natalie Simon, actually, as she refereed the Revolution game yesterday. I mean, it was fiery. Colorado was coming in, hitting. They were up 3-0, and then the Revs came back to win tie at 3-3. It was an incredible game, and I thought she was phenomenal. I wanted to get your take on the second yellow for Schaffelberg today. Do you think that was a clear yellow? it seemed like it was knowing that he's already in yellow, that it kind of was that,
you didn't
that
have
gray
to call it.
area. Yeah, that was a gray area.
Yeah, like when we kind of say, can you manage your way out of that situation, right? Like that, not everyone's going to be sitting there screaming and saying, like, you completely got that wrong. I mean, the referee is fully justified in that yellow. I mean, the recommendations are for that yellow because of the profile of these games and the tournament implication side of it. He would be considered as having missed it from a referee observer standpoint if he did not give that yellow. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but right, tournament versus league and season is a little bit different for how things are perceived. So he would have been chalked up as having a missed incident if he had not given that yellow, because they would have considered it 100% misconduct on that. But I can feel you guys, but it doesn't mean that the answer would be different in the sense of knowing what someone's assessment score would have been after that if he had not given it. And you're right. Shout out to Nat. Her and I, we used to referee in Miami together, so we got our stripes down in Miami area when we were refereeing.
Well, Christina, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate all your insights into refereeing and what goes into it, and your expert analysis on different types of plays. And of course, that was a red card against Malik Tillman. That helps justify how we're feeling about it as well. And we are down to our final four of the Gold Cup. The semifinals are set. Both games will be happening on July 2nd. That is next Wednesday. We, of course, will be having another live watch along. We're playing Guatemala in St. Louis. That game will kick off at 7 p.m. Eastern. And the other other semifinal will be Mexico versus Honduras. That'll kick off at 10 p.m. Eastern. That'll be here in the Bay Area. Maybe I'll go. No, I can't go because I'm doing a watch along for the U.S. against Guatemala. That should be a lot of fun. But let's talk about Honduras first, because they were down to Panama, 1-0 Panama. We're all over them in this game. Ishmael Diaz got a penalty right before halftime. And then not Chucky Lozano, but Choco Lozano scored for Honduras in the 82nd minute to make it 1-1. And Honduras outlasted Panama in pens to go through. Then Canada, Guatemala. That was earlier today. Okay, that was a crazy game. Canada were up 1-0. Jacob Schaffelberg got a place for Nashville in MLS, got 2 yellow cards before half. Guatemala turned it around, got a late goal, and won in penalties, very similar to the Honduras thing. And the Mexico were excellent against Saudi Arabia, won that game 2-0, though it took them into the second half to score those 2 goals. But I thought Mexico, probably the best team in the tournament so far. And then, as we discussed already, the U.S. had to go to pens to beat Costa Rica. We had Francisco Calvo scored on a penalty. We scored a goal on either side of halftime. Diego Luna got his first ever goal for the U.S., and Max Arfsten got his first ever goal, and then we let it slip. Alonso Martinez made it 2-2, but we survived in pens due to Matt Freese. Thank you, Matt Freese, and Damian Downs scored the winner. Congrats to him for stepping up and taking on that responsibility and doing the business. We appreciate you. Final four is set. So, Big Tones, I'm coming to you first. Who do you like to get to the final? What is in the stars? We always want U.S.-Mexico, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I wanted Canada in the semis so we could get some revenge for the Nations League.
Yeah, but they didn't get there, Jimmy.
They didn't get there.
Too soon, Tony.
Too soon.
Oh,
hey, by the way, Jesse Marsh is joining the show. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Did I miss something? Yeah, look, it's easy to say Mexico, U.S., right? But if you watch Guatemala today, okay, they win a man. They had a man up for quite a while in that game, but they played some really good stuff, and they played at a really high tempo, about as high tempo as we've seen them play for a while. And then Honduras last night, what they did to Panama, they just were resilient, right? And then they get the penalty kicks, and Menjivar, their goalkeeper, does really, really well. I think I'm still going to pick Mexico, U.S., but I just don't think it's going to be so straightforward. Like, I think there's some twists and turns in there someplace, but I think they get through.
Who has a better chance of the upset, Guatemala or Honduras?
Well, I think Guatemala, because Mexico is a lot closer to their full team than we are, right?
Yeah,
so
they've had some shaky performances.
Yeah, I mean they got whooped for a little bit. Was it Canada, right? Was that's a 6-0 against Canada? Was it the Honduras? So but I still think Mexico's light years ahead of them, and anything can happen on night. But Guatemala, what I saw today was pretty impressive. They stuck it to Canada, and Canada, we can say that they don't have their full team. They're missing half their team, whatever. They got the job done today. So there's emotion in that team. I don't know if you saw just like when right at the end of the game, the last penalty kick, I mean, those guys they put everything into that. It means so much to them. I dare I say it means more to them than it does to the U.S. and Mexico.
Yeah.
First time ever in the Gold Cup semifinals, Chuck, for Guatemala. And you wonder if they maybe spent too much emotion there. I mean, we're going to have a preview for this game on Tuesday, so come back and join us for that here on the Glosso America YouTube channel. We go live at 10 a.m. Eastern. But just to kind of get ahead of it, I mean, will they have enough time to turn that around emotionally? I mean, are you just going to ride that momentum? I don't know. I think that could be an area where the U.S. could exploit it. But who knows?
Good thing you asked me, because I will not be on that Tuesday 10 a.m. podcast, as I will be coaching at my camp this week.
Nice. Can we sign up? Ian Big Tone still needs
yes.
to
Yeah. So I have goalkeepers at my camp. I need tones. You know what?
Get no invite.
What I think is this team is going to be playing with house money. They're playing to play with freedom. They're obviously going to still play with that intensity, the desire to inspire their country. You could see exactly what it meant to the supporters, what it meant to the team. Those are teams that are really dangerous to play. It's tough to break their spirit.
Yeah.
And you either have to make them chase the game and give them no sniffs, and then punish them when they do open up, or score enough goals that you break their will. And so those are the two ways to really get at this Guatemala side. They do have vulnerabilities. They lack pace. I mean, that was evident in this game against Canada, but Canada neutralized themselves with the red card with Schaffelberg.
Right.
So can they use pace? Can they, generate some opportunities from running at this back line, playing balls in behind, stretching the back line? That's how you really get after this Guatemala side.
Do you think that Costa Rica gave somewhat of a blueprint for Guatemala? And Chuck, I'll come right back to you since you won't be with us on Tuesday. But do you feel like they could take some elements of what Costa Rica did, which was just kind of absorb, and you're going to get your chances?
They don't need to.
Give you a chance. No?
They don't. They've already done what they have their own blueprint. They beat Canada. Okay. Canada were favorites over us. So at the end of the day, they're going to go out there and go, okay, we saw exactly what Costa Rica did. It's basically pretty similar to how we played to get by Canada. Now, we probably saw some weaknesses too, and some gaps and vulnerabilities running at Max Arfsten. Max Arfsten, if he starts, he's a little shaky at defending. He gives too much space. So you can either run at him, or you can slowly go at him with your head up, waiting for opportunities because he drops off. So those are things that you can watch and say, okay, the U.S. may drop off a little bit. They don't close down the space quick enough. So we will have opportunities on the counter and set pieces.
All right, yeah, it's gonna be another difficult game. And to what Chuck was saying, Tones, when we were at 2-1, I'm gonna go back to this a lot. When we were at 2-1 against Costa Rica, there was 10 minutes after that goal where we're driving the game, and that's kind of the moment where can we find a third? Remember, we had a free kick. We talked about it when we were doing the watch along. If we could get another goal right now, game's dead. And we just couldn't find that. And it's I know it's hard to sustain that type of control over a full half, right? We could argue even when a team is getting their butts kicked, they're still going to have maybe 5-ish minutes, 10 minutes where they're going to have a little bit of the flow of the game. That's just kind of how it works out. But it feels like we couldn't take advantage of our advantage or the momentum or the confidence that we had. And then slowly Costa Rica, as they had to commit more numbers, which is what we talked about. Actually, right before the goal got scored, their second goal, Costa Rica, we talked about, well, this could be a good opportunity. It was like 10 seconds before they dribbled through us. This could be a good opportunity for us to hit them in the counter. And then boom, 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 they score and make it 2-2. And well, that conversation's out the window. This team, I think, has demonstrated that we need to get better at knowing when to go and when to slow it down. And I mean, maybe these are too big of asks for a team that's still relatively new, right? And with a lot of inexperience. Yeah. But this is kind of where I think we need to go and where we need to be if we're going to be competitive next summer.
Yeah, you touched it on the end. If you didn't say it, I was going to say that. I just wonder, like, what are we asking of this group, right? We come into the tournament saying, we're missing all of these players and these guys are young and we don't have national team experience. And And then we're asking them to do all of the things that you're mentioning, right? Which is part of what a good team does. But like, what's the ask of this group? That I think, and everyone will have a different ask. Everyone will have a different. I came in saying that that we always go into the Gold Cup thinking about winning the Gold Cup. And then some, you guys asked me, I think we did it here, or maybe we did it on the morning show, Morning Footy. I said, if we run into Canada or Mexico, that's kind of the end of the line, right? They've gotten to that point. They kind of exceeded that right now by getting to this point, but there's still some work to do. But I'm not going to expect them to kill every game off. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be a problem. They're going to have to fight back and do something. You know what I mean? There's like, if you're telling me that this is Anthony Robinson and Christian Pulisic and Sergino Dest and blah, 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 and the rest of them, I'm like, yeah, they got to dominate this game for 90 minutes, right?
That's
like,
fair.
yeah, of course they do. But I guess we all just have a different maybe expectation, if you will.
Yeah, I just feel like this group's been together now for
You're
a few
muted,
weeks,
Chuck.
right?
My point is they have enough
what's your
talent.
ask? They have more than enough talent.
This team has more than enough talent. When you said perfectly, I think you perfectly said it. If they come up against Canada or Mexico, they're the underdogs. If you beat them, great. But are you expected to beat them? No. Now Canada is out. You're playing Guatemala. You're expected to beat Guatemala. I don't care if they beat Canada. I don't care if they beat Mexico. You're expected to beat them.
I agree with you.
You're expected to beat Trinidad. You're expected to beat Haiti. You're expected to beat Saudi Arabia, especially given that was the Saudi Arabians' BC team, right? And then in this game, you're expected to win. Costa Rica, they're tough. The Ticos have always been tough. That's the mentality. And Keylor Navas made it much closer. Will always make it much closer than it probably should be. But at the same time, there's enough talent in this group to get to the final. That's for damn sure. And there shouldn't be anything. There should be nothing less than that, in my opinion.
No doubt. The expectation is to get to the final. Now they've put themselves in a position to be in a final.
Yeah. One thing I'll leave everybody with: my expectations, and I've seen it throughout the tournament. So my expectations have now been raised. I loved our collective team pressure against Trinidad. Now, whatever you want to say about Trinidad is fair. They weren't good, but I saw elements of it. I'm like, okay, cool. Can we replicate that against Saudi Arabia and then Haiti and now against Costa Rica? And can we do it against Guatemala and whoever we hopefully play against in the final? We need to see more of that. I want to see more of it consistently. And then we had some really good build-up play today. I don't want to take away some of the really good sequences that we put together. Now, can we see more of that? And can it lead to even more dangerous chances? Can we stay on the front foot more? Can we manage the game more? I've seen enough of that, both Chuck and Tone said that, okay, we do have enough talent. We've demonstrated that. Now, how do we put that together over a longer period of time that allows us to control and manage games, whether we have the ball or not? And that's where my expectations are. And that'll help us identify who we can trust when we name our World Cup roster, right? So those are all the components and things that I have in terms of my expectations. Personally, yes, I want to win, but for me, the results are secondary to, if we're making good decisions on both sides of the ball, the results are going to take care of themselves.